Greetings, social media kindred and spirits. I am Deborah M. Stewart, a custodian of the promptings of the divine mind, in association of the wedding feast of Matthew 22, 1 through 14, for the preparation of the bride of Christ towards Christ consciousness. Today we will be continuing our reading of Solar Biology by Harry M. Butler. Today's subject is Polarity and Quality, subtopic Courage and Consolation for All. Chapter 5, Courage and Consolation for All. Before proceeding with the polarities of the moon, it may be well to observe that some of the positions of nativity and polarities of the life forces are apparently not as favorable as others for the promotion of a peaceful, happy, and prosperous career. These, however, may be greatly modified and improved by planetary conditions, and to judge correctly of a nature, all of these facts and conditions must be taken into consideration. It is obvious that some are born with physical conditions involving them in greater trial, temptation, and struggle than others. But the merit and virtue of life is expressed in one's disposition and ability to surmount obstacles and to resist temptations, and consequently, that which seems their serious misfortune may become the occasion of their greatest triumph. Therefore, let all take courage when they find themselves possessed of an harmonious of character which predispose them to trials, mistakes, and temptations, for it should not be assumed that any of the polarities and planetary conditions are bad in themselves, though relatively and seemingly so from the standpoint of present earthly conditions. For the worst is capable of becoming the best through the cultivation of the higher and the subjugation of the lower propensities of the nature. Let us keep in mind that man has in his nature that which adapts him for a life higher and grander than his present conditions and environments, and that in such degree as he evolves or incorporates the elements of a higher rationality and wisdom, does he cast down or subjugate the imperfections of present being, enjoying the solar and celestial forces that give self-control and law and order to life. Thus, foundation qualities and polarities that seemed a tissue of evil become basic energies of usefulness and power when regulated and dignified by the inner and higher degrees of nature. This science illustrates and enforces the biblical declaration that man's nature is threefold, but at the present time we are living almost wholly in the physical and material degree of being, and feeding, meaning intellectually and affectionately, mainly on the husk of creation. Hence, the delineation of one's nature and character as set forth by solar biology has reference to solar and planetary influence on mankind in their present stage of general unfoldment, without regard to the effect is which discipline and culture may have had on individuals. In opening or unfolding the inner and higher departments or degrees of their being. Yet even with a moderate degree of observation, one may readily trace the basic qualities and tendencies of his own or another's nature as defined by this science, and especially may this be recognized in the spontaneous and involuntary impulses of the person. But it does not necessarily follow that they will act them out or be governed by them in all particulars, but the root, so to speak, will be found there all the same. Most, if not all, are familiar with the fact that superior fruit may be produced by inserting the right kind of graft into a wild and unprofitable stock. Thus we may have apples and pears from the quince stock and wild fruit trees, All kinds can be made to send their energies through grafts, which yield luscious fruit. The same principle is not without its application to human nature. New thoughts and purposes become the grafts, by virtue of which the natural basic forces of the system are brought into new and superior fruitfulness. So, whatever may be your foundation, quality, or polarity, remember that you are, in more senses than one, an heir to the excellent things of the universe. In the mechanism of solar biology, we have given the signs of the zodiac after the order of the birth of the 12 sons of Jacob, commencing with Libra. It is evident that the biblical historians had a reason for beginning with the sign, as Libra is the head of the reproductive trinity, and the generation of new commences with this function and moves in a circular through the entire 12 signs back to the starting point. The fetus in the womb is nurtured and developed upon this principle, lying in a circle, the head and feet together, strictly in accordance with the order and arrangement of the signs of the zodiac, and we may regard the entire solar system as a womb, in which natural life is being evolved in accordance with this law. Therefore, even the most highly unfolded beings upon this or any other earth of the system are relatively but as children in the womb of creation. With the introduction of the atmosphere to the lungs of the newborn child comes the first effort at conscious, individualized existence, and conscious existence in its larger and more perfect sense is only attained as man comes with his interior lungs, or spiritual and mental powers, to inspire the higher and purer atmospheres of the universe. And this he is privileged to do even in the present earth life in a degree far beyond general comprehension. The power and importance of breath. Breath is the most important thing we have. It is the symbol of life itself. In Genesis 2:7, we find, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." We have but slight, if any, direct control over the actions of the heart and other internal functions. Our voluntary hold on life seems to be seated in the lungs and in our power of breath. Breath is ours, with power to inspire deeply, and by this means we are enabled to strengthen and vitalize every portion of the system. There is a spiritual as well as a mental and physical breath. Man, so to speak, is a tree whose roots are in the atmosphere, and therefore may he inspire life in a threefold sense. Who that has visited a mountaintop, but what has felt that he was inspiring the breath of the gods? Ye who have climbed a mountain peak and heard its godly presence speak, can understand how glory alone, or Sinai as Jehovah's throne, when unto Moses there was given the lasting law of earth and heaven. Who thus hath felt the kindling fire, which mountain climbing doth aspire, can understand how ancient Greek should oracle Olympia's peak, and why a mount should ever stand to symbol God in every land. We might with profit dwell upon the power and importance of the breath, not only in its relation to physical health, but in its bearing upon mental and spiritual unfoldment and exaltation as well. but we judge that this brief allusion will be sufficient for our present purpose, and that in consideration of its importance would not be deemed out of place. Reference having been made to the signs of the zodiac after the order given in Genesis, and still further elaborated in the chapter on the mechanism of solar biology, we now proceed with the 144 polarities of the moon, commencing with Aries as a matter of convenience for reference, as we are in the habit of thinking and counting from the head downward, and for that reason, the more elaborate explanation of the nature and functions of the 12 signs has already been given in that order. I hope that this has been an encouragement to your ascension journey. We will continue next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, starting from the 12 polarities of Aries with the moon in Aries. It's been a pleasure serving you. Until we meet again.